Shavua Tov, a gute Woche, and welcome to our program. Monday is Chofov. Chofov is the outside of Agoen HaChosid HaMekubal, the believer Yitzchok Nishmos Eiden Schneerson, the Rebbe's father. Concerning that date of Chofov, the Rebbe says in a Sichet of in Kerach Daled, in the Rebbe's humility, that he only found once the date of Chofov. The Rebbe so far writes that he only found one time in Shas, and that is in connection with the woodpile in the Beis Hamikdash. It's the Mishnah in Tainis. It's a long Mishnah. It starts on Daf Chavov Omed Aleph, and it goes all the way down to Daf Chavov Omed Beis, probably one of the longest or the longest Mishnah. And there we find Be'esrim Bey, on the 20th day of Av, B'nei Pachas Me'ov ben Yehudo. On the 20th day of Av, who was the family that prepared the wood for the Beis Hamikdash, for the woodpile to bring the sacrifices, the korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash? The children of Pachas Me'ov ben Yehudo. That's what the Gemara says in the Mishnah Daf Chof Vov Omed Aleph. Later we find, and that's the Gemara in Daf Chof Ches Omed Aleph, where the Gemara says, Be'esrim Bey B'nei Pachas Me'ov ben Yehudo. The Gemara refers to what the Mishnah says, and then the Gemara continues, Tona B'nei Pachas Me'ov ben Yehudo, Hein B'nei David ben Yehudo. Who are the people of Pachas Me'ov ben Yehudo? These are the children of David ben Yehudo. This is the opinion of Rab Meir. Rabbi Yossi says, Hein b'nei Yeov ben Tzeruyo. These are the grandchildren of Yeov ben Tzeruyo. The Rebbe asks that how can there be a machlekes in Mitzias? In fact, it's either they are the grandchildren of David ben Yehuda, or they are the grandchildren of Yeov ben Tzeruyo. So how can there be a machlekes, a difference of opinion? In fact, it's either they are one's grandchildren or they are the other's grandchildren. In order for us to understand this entire matter, it's important for us to see what the Mishnah says in continuation of the Mishnah. Towards the end of the Mishnah, Daf Chof Vav Omed Beis, Omer Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said, Lehoyu Yomim Tevim LeYisrael Kechamisha Osel Be'ov Ochim HaKippurim. There were no Yomim Tevim, holidays and days of festivity to the Jewish people as great as Chamisha Osel Be'ov and Yom Kippur. What happened then? Shebehen b'nei Yisrael yetzeis b'chli lovon she'ulin. That Jewish daughters would go out and they would borrow white garments, she'ulin, they would borrow it, shelei levayish as mi she'en lei. So in order not to embarrass the one who does not have white garments on her own. And the Mefarshim already asked the question that technically, according to Dikduk, it should have said Shlei Levayish es mi she'ein lo, not to embarrass the young lady who does not have, who cannot afford a white garment, and this is why they were all borrowed. So it should have said she'ein lo. Lo is lashon nekeva in the feminine, and the answer to that is, Mefarshim say, it says she'ein lei. Ein lei is not a reference to her. Ein lei is a reference to her father, not to embarrass her father. She's a young lady. She does not have the money for a white garment in any case. So who supplies her with the ability to buy a white garment? Who gives her that money? It's the father. Now, if she doesn't have it, it's not because she doesn't have it. It's because the father doesn't have it. So who is embarrassed in turn? The father. That's why the Mishnah says, Shlei levayish es mi she'en lei. So now we know of the situation at this time of the year, that it's Chofov, And the wood pile was brought by a certain family. And it also, before that, is a great yontif. 4 days before that, it's a great yontif, Chamisha Osod Be'ov, 5 days before. And that is the great yontif of Jewish daughters going out and dancing in the fields, and that brings, in a good show, to Shidduchim. Going back to the question, how can there be a machlekes in Metzias? In fact, it's either they were the grandchildren of David ben Yehuda, or they were the grandchildren of Yeov ben Tzeruya. We will return to that in a moment. But first, our customary story. This story is special because it's actually a double story, since it's Chofov. And this story starts with the Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father, and it continues with the Rebbe. The year is 1935. Our uncle, the Zalman Schneerson, our mother's brother, was leaving Russia, and he was going to the United States. And after that, he was going to Israel, and then he went to Paris and so on. Before he left, there was a Shabbos that was a Tzeischem L'Sholem for him, a farewell Shabbos. To that Shabbos, special guests came. Special guest, of course, was the Rebbe's father, the Levi Yitzchak, who came specially to Moscow to be with him on that Shabbos. The reason for Levi Yitzchak coming to be with him, because they were first cousins. The Zalman Schneerson's father was the Menachem Mendel, the Lovin Chernigiv. The Levi Yitzchak's father was the Baruch Schneer, and the Baruch Schneer and the Menachem Mendel were brothers. So the Levi Yitzchak came for Shabbos. Also, the Levi Yitzchak's brother, the Shmuel Schneerson, also came for Shabbos. Also, for that Shabbos came the Menachem Mendel, the Shnei Zalman's father, the Lovin Chernigiv, who was the Levi Yitzchak's uncle. Now, you have to make arrangements for everyone. So it fell upon my father, Olav Sholem, to make arrangements for everyone, to make the proper sleeping arrangements for everyone. The Rebbe's father, the Levi Yitzchak, asked him, "Where did you take all the pillows and the blankets?" He already knew that the Zalman Schneerson already sent all his baggage before. So if he sent all his baggage before, how did you get all the pillows and blankets and so on? And my father answered him that there was a business in those days, that many people had a small business. This was an individual woman who had a business, and the business was that they would rent pillows and blankets. They would wash them, they would iron them, and they would rent them out for a day, for 2 days, for a few days. Then it was a business. Talking about Moscow, 1935. So the Levi Yitzchak answered him, "Ich will mein Kopf auf ihr Kissen nicht legen," that I will not put my head on her pillow. My father used to tell the story, and he listened immediately, and he made other arrangements, and the Levi Yitzchak was very happy. This is 1935. We go now from 1935, 12 years later, to 1947. And the Rebbe is in Paris. And the Rebbe stays in a hotel, Edward VII, 39 Rue Opéra, one of the nicest streets in Paris. And the Rebbe stays in the hotel. And Chassidim noticed. They would come to see him in the morning. The bed was not touched. What they found on the bed was for him and so on. And one Chassid noticed it. What's the matter with the bed? The bed is not touched. Another one noticed. The Bisa Klufgand even once said to the Rebbe, I see that the bed is not touched. And the Rebbe says, "Vos mekemba melken?" You can tell. What they were able to tell is that the Rebbe was there for 3 months, and the bed was always not touched, which means that the few hours that the Rebbe needed to rest, the Rebbe rested on the chair next to his desk for 3 months. What we see here, it's the same idea. The Levi Yitzchak said, "Ich will mein Kopf auf ihr Kissen nicht legen," that I will not put my head on her pillow. It's the same idea in Paris in 1947. It's the same idea. The only thing is, in Moscow in 1935, it was a small business by an individual family, and here it's a bigger business. But here's it's the same idea. They rent a room, and with the room, they also rent, as a package deal, the pillow and the blanket. They wash it and they iron it and so on. However, it's putting one's head on their pillow, and the Rebbe didn't want to do that. So for 3 months, the Rebbe rested every night on the chair by his desk. It's like father, the Levi Yitzchak in 1935, like son, the Rebbe in 1947. Going back to our question, the Rebbe says that, we'll learn it inside, the Rebbe says that there cannot be a machlekes in Metzias. There cannot be a machlekes as to, in fact, it's either they are children of David or they're the grandchildren of Yeov ben Tziluyo. Therefore, logic dictates that there was a shidduch between these two mishpachas. There was a shidduch between David HaMelech and Yeov ben Tziluyo, and these are the children that came out of this shidduch, of this union. So it's the same children. Now, these children are grandchildren of David HaMelech, and they are grandchildren of Yeov ben Tziluyo. The question is, the machlekes between the Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was what made this family do what they did. Was it because of David HaMelech, or was it because of Yeov ben Tziluyo? And the Rebbe says that if we check what they did, they prepared the wood pile for korbanos. Now, what's special about the wood pile of the 20th day of Av? So the Rebbe brings the Gemara, and the Gemara in Tainis. Maybe we should learn the Gemara inside again. It's in Tainis, Daf Lamed Aleph. Let's learn. Let's see if we can find the Gemara in Tainis. And there the Gemara says like this, that Rabbi Lezer HaGodel Eimer, Rabbi Lezer HaGodel says, Mechamisha also be'ov ve'elech toshash keicho shel chamo. From the 15th day of Av and on, toshash keicho shel chamo, the power of the sun is diminished. V'lehoyu kilsin eitzim lemarocho, and from that day on, they would not cut new wood lemarocho for the wood pile, lefi she'enon yeveshin, because the wood is not dry, and if the wood is not dry, there can be worms there, and therefore that wood cannot be used. So therefore, you have to use wood that was cut before the 15th day of Av. Now, when we come 5 days later to the 20th day of Av, and we need eitzim and we need wood for the wood pile, then we cannot go and get wood that day. It's only wood that we cut before the 15th day. And therefore, wood becomes a very, very precious commodity because you can get it today. Now, the Rebbe explains that you need wood for a lot of korbanos. There's a Jew that brings a korban elo, and because of which is a sacrifice that's completely burnt on the mizbeach, a burnt offering, And that's a special Jew. And we have to make sure that he has wood. Now, there's a Jew that brings a shlomim. He brings a shlomim. It's a peaceful sacrifice. The Kehanim have a big part in it. His family has a part in it. It's something very, very nice, which is wonderful. But then there is a kolbon that brought by a Jew, and that kolbon is a korban chatos. It's because he sinned. It's a korban oshom because he transgressed. So now we're not talking about the finest Jew in the world. We're talking about a Jew that transgressed, that did avedas Rahman al-Islam. Now, what happens? The wood pile itself is not a korban. It's not that you are sacrificing the wood. The wood is not a korban. The wood only facilitates a korban because you can't burn the korban unless there is wood. So now this family was worried that they wanted to make sure to facilitate the korbanos, not only the korbanos for Klal Yisrael, that we bring one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So they wanted to make sure there is wood for the wood pile. And they not only wanted to make sure that there's wood for the wood pile if a Jew comes and he brings an oilo, if a Jew comes and he brings a shlomim. What if a Jew comes and he brings a chatos because he sinned? The chatos yidel. And what if a Jew comes and he brings an osham, a different kind of transgression? And he, for his korban, needs wood. So they were sitting and worried, not only for Klal Yisrael and not only for the wonderful Jews who bring an elo and a shlomim, but they were worried for the Jew who brings a chatos and an osham, that he also should have the wood. He shouldn't have to worry. He should be able to bring the korban whenever he wants. And now the Meir and Rabbi Yehuda are thinking, where did they get this kind of sensitivity to worry for every Jew, including the sinner? Some people would say, the sinner, I have to worry for him. First he sins, and then I have to make sure that he has wood. Let him get his own wood. And if he can't get his own wood, what do you want from me? They didn't make that calculation. They wanted to be sure that even that Jew, the Jew of the chatos, the Jew of the osham, the one who transgressed, whether he transgressed a sin that needs a chatos, a korban chatos, or he transgressed with a sin that needs a korban osham, that he also should be welcome. And he should not have to worry where he's going to get the wood for the wood pile. And they worried for him too. And the Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was thinking, where did they get that sensitivity? So the Meir says it's simple. They got it because they were grandchildren of David HaMelech. So therefore, they were continuing the tradition of David HaMelech who cared for everyone. Says Rabbi Yehuda, wait a minute. They took it from Yoav ben Tzeruya. What was the difference? David HaMelech was the king, we all know. Yoav ben Tzeruya was the chief of staff. And the Rebbe brings the Gemara. It's the Gemara in Sanhedrin Memteso Medalev the Rebbe brings. Ilmole David liosa Yoav milchoma. That if not for David, Yoav would not be able to be successful in his milchoma. Vilmole Yoav leosik David batera. And if not for Yoav, David HaMelech wouldn't be able to sit and learn Torah. Because there was a problem. There were enemies. They were the enemies of the Jewish people. Now David HaMelech wanted to sit and learn. But you can't sit and learn in peace when the enemies are there. So Yoav ben Tzeruya made sure that he was the chief of staff. He made sure he took care of those enemies. And he conquered those enemies. So that David HaMelech should be able to learn in peace. And moreover, says the Rebbe, very interestingly, that it's not that because of David's schus, because of the merit of David, Yoav was successful. Of course that was the case, but it's deeper than that. Yoav was successful because Yoav had a part in the Torah of David. So the Torah that helped It's not only the Torah of David. Since David only learned the Torah because Yeov helped him, then Yeov had a part in David's Torah. It's not only the schus of David's Torah, which of course was there. Yeov had a part in David's Torah. So the question is, where does that sensitivity come from? And now we see these are the children that are issued from this union of David and Yeov. Nevertheless, the machlekes is, did they get it from David and did they get it from Yeov? Now the Rebbe goes on to explain that David and Yeov both showed a great bittul, a self-annulment, and they did it only for the sake of Almighty God. However, David showed it in the learning of Torah, that he didn't care of himself. He cared only for the Torah, and the Gemara says, "Vashem imek alocha kemesi," that God is with him. Why is alocha kemesi? Because he was always connected with God. He was always thinking, what does Almighty God want from me? Not what I can do, but Almighty God wants me to do. So because of that connection, he was zeicha halacha kemesi, that the halacha is like David HaMelech. Yeov ben Tzeruya gave away his life for one thing, to protect the Jewish people. And selflessly gave himself away for one thing, that a mother should be able to sleep at night. She shouldn't have to worry that the enemies are going to attack her children, and that David HaMelech should be able to learn Torah. And for that he gave away his life. And his children, because have merited that they took that point from him, that they have to worry for everyone, for David HaMelech and for everyone else that should be able to live in peace in Eretz Yisrael. Now, what remains here, Rabbi say, very interestingly, that we mentioned before, that the Mishnah says, it's a long Mishnah, the Mishnah says that Lehoya Yomim Tivim LiYisrael Kechamisha also be'ov, which we learned before. Before we continue, there is a part on this daf, Tainis Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, that the Rebbe spoke about many times, and that is that Mikan ve'elech, and Mikan ve'elech, Rashi says, from now on and forward. What does that mean? Rashi says, Mechamisha also be'ov ve'elech. Since the day is now becoming shorter and the night is becoming longer, so the Gemara says, Mekan ve'elech, from now on and going forward. And Rashi says, Mechamisha also be'ov ve'elech, the Mesif leilis al hayomim, the one who will add the nights to the days, then lasek b'teira, to learn Teira, Yesif Chayim al Chayav, the Mesif Yesif, that the one who is going to add from the night to the day, in other words, since the night now is becoming longer, the day is becoming shorter, so he's going to add time from the night onto the day. And what is he going to do with that time? La'asek b'teira, Yesif Chayim al Chayav, will add life to his life. And the Rebbe spoke about it so many times, because the Gemara tells us everybody wants long life. Here is the key to long life. Right after Chamisha Osa Be'ov, the nights become longer. So if we use those nights in order to learn Torah, Rashi says, Yesif Chayim al Chayav, he will add, and we will add, life to our life. Now, at the end of the Gemara in Tainis, the end of the Gemara in Tainis is these words. Rabbi Lozer says, Almighty God is going to make a mochil. Mochil means a circular dance for the tzaddikim. And he's going to sit among them in Gan Eden. And everyone is going to show with his finger. Shenemar ve'omer bayim hahu. And he will say on that day, a pasuk in Yeshaya, Hine Elokeinu zeh kivinu le v'yeshienu. We know the pasuk. This is our God. Kivinu le, we trusted in Him. We had faith in Him. V'yeshienu, and He will rescue us. Zeh Hashem kivinu le. This is Almighty God that we had trust in Him. Nogilo v'nismecho b'shu'osei. Let us be happy and joyous in His salvation. This is the end of Masechta Tainis. Asks the Gemara, how does this get to be the end of Tainis? We're not talking about a dance here. How does this get here? That there should be, and there's no, and arguably there's no connection to what it says before. Comes the Rebbe and he says, just before, it says, it talks about what we said before in the Mishnah, that the Jewish daughter are cheles bakromim. They are dancing in the fields. Now, the Rebbe takes the word cheles bakromim from the Bnei Yisrael and connects it with the word mochel letzadikim. Cheles and mochel are variations of the same word, of a dance. So the Rebbe says this is the connection. If you're going to ask yourself a question, how come this is the end of Masechta Tainis? Because it says Mochel Tzadikim. How did Mochel Tzadikim get here? It's connected with what we have learned before. What did we learn before? And here, just before that, the Gemara speaks about that extensively. We've learned about that the Bnei Yisrael are cheles bakromim, are dancing in the vineyards. And that brings to Shidduchim. And from that, Almighty God is making a mochel letzadikim. So it's cheles and mochel are variations of the same word, meaning a dance. So lehoyu yomim tevim liYisrael kechamisha also be'ov is not only a big simcha, because it brings Shidduchim, it's all the Rebbe to help him. And that itself is a big simcha. That all those who need Shidduchim, all the young men who need Shidduchim, all the young women who need Shidduchim, Chamisha Osa B'Ov is the season for that. There should be Shidduchim for everyone. B'Shot Teva Mutzlachas, Gesundheit und Fröhlichkeit. Moreover, those Shidduchim have a connection with the coming of Mashiach. We're connecting the two dances. You come to a wedding and you see a dance. That dance is connected with the ultimate dance, that Almighty God is going to dance with tzaddikim. And as the Rebbe says to us so many times, that we are the last generation of Golus and the first generation of Geulah, the last generation of exile and the first generation of redemption. And our generation is going to see that great dance. Which dance are we talking about? Osida Kodesh Baruch Hu Lases Mochel Tzaddikim. Almighty God is going to make a circular dance with tzaddikim, and He's going to sit with them, and everyone is going to show with their finger. And the Rebbe spoke about it so many times, with such fervor, that this is going to be that great day that we are going to be privy to, that everyone will show and will say Zeh 2 times. Hine Elokeinu Zeh. This is our God. We're going to point our finger to Him. We're going to say Zeh 2 times. Kivinu le v'yeshienu. And then we're going to say Zeh again. Zeh Hashem. This is Almighty God. Kivinu le, that we have trust in Him. Nagilo v'nismecho b'shu'osei. We're going to rejoice and we're going to be happy in His salvation. Speedily, friends, in our very, very own days. Uvagolo didano v'simcha uvtuv leivov. ובטבע נראה ויעניג לו למטה מעשור הטפוחים ובחסד וברחמים ותקף ומיד ממש